Alright, we've got 3 episodes of It Welcome to Derry left, and today we'll be reviewing episodes 6 and 7.
No way! No way!
So the episode opens with Leroy telling his son that him being in the sewers is why he shot his best friend and that he shouldn't have gone down there. And the whole time, you can tell that Leroy is in shock, and he tells his wife in front of Will what Pennywise can do and how it can change its shape. And again, this is great stuff. The awareness the adults have about Pennywise is something that I continue to love about this series.
I know I'm not you, because I would never let my friends die.
Ooh. Oh, not Leroy hitting Will, but what Will said to his father. That was a nasty thing to say, and for once, I don't think Leroy deserved that. We then cut to Lily showing the kids the blade that she found, and when Will wants to look at it, she says that she'll hold it with a strange intensity.
Can I see? I'll hold it. Fine.
This was uncalled for. And in general, she's quite angry at the beginning of this episode. I get that she's upset and that seeing Pennywise was traumatic for her, but her telling them not to touch the dagger like it's the ring of power? That was kinda weird.
Lily, just give it.
Don't touch it!
And Ronnie gets in an argument with Lily for taking them down there, although I would argue that they were careless for not protesting the idea that much. And the characters disband. Now you can tell they did this because they wanted to separate the kids into groups. They wanted to put Will and Ronnie together as well as Marge and Rich, and they wanted to give them romantic developments, which is something they couldn't do when they are all together. And I don't mind them doing this, but I felt the drama in this part needed to be written better, because it felt too quick and forced just so it could split them up. We also find out that Leroy's wife finds a place for Ronnie's father to stay, and when she tells Will to come in the car, and then tells Ronnie to come in as well, I thought she was going to drive her home. Instead, she brings her here to see her father. And that warmed my heart. That was really nice of her, and it gave these two a really nice reunion. Dick, however, surprisingly doesn't like that they are hiding him here, but when Ronnie shows up, Dick starts to feel like an actual dick, and begrudgingly goes along with it. So that was funny. But Dick is acting very out of sorts. He tells Leroy even more about his ability and even tells him about the box where he hides all the dead people he used to see, and that Pennywise opened that box when he was in the sewer. He even says that they pissed it off. And despite Leroy hearing all these things, he doesn't look at him like he's crazy. And again, I love that. Leroy believing all this has made him an infinitely more interesting and likable character. And to further prove that Dick is unraveling, he lashes out at Leroy despite him being his superior.
You don't talk to me like that. I'm your superior officer. I don't give a fuck! Get out!
That's funny. Remember when he said this?
So you are not the kind of fella I'm likely to fuck with, Major.
Ooh, how the tables have turned. And I'm here for it. This seems to be the episode where tensions are really starting to rise with the characters. The trauma and fear factor is starting to get to them, and we're seeing some of them break. Meanwhile, you have other characters that are handling it better. Almost comedically so. Marge has really integrated into the group, and both her and Rich are really getting along well, and you can see a romance is blossoming between the two. She shows him her eye, he tells her that he was so scared of Pennywise that he peed in a jar next to his bed. It's a romantic love story for the ages. She even stuck it to the bitch squad who were trying to take her away from her friends, and she told them to get lost by showing them her eye. That was funny, and again, shows how well she is integrating with the group, and it's making her a much more likable character. And her eye wasn't as bad as I thought it was. From what I can tell, it's the eyelid that seems to be damaged, but her eye still seems to be intact. Meanwhile, Lily is on her own for most of the episode, and she very smartly carries that dagger with her the entire episode. And we find out that the nurse is actually a crazy person. Like many of you speculated, she is the daughter of the original Pennywise before it came in and took his form. She met him once before killing a kid, and she believes that if she offers him enough children as a sacrifice, that her father will come back to her. You know, it's funny how when Leroy sees his wife, he could tell it was not her, but this woman gets full-on proof and says, "Oh yeah, that's my father." How? Well, a daughter knows. Clearly she doesn't. Like I said, she's a crazy person. But that aside, this actually explains a lot of the questions I had, and even some plot holes. Or what I thought to be plot holes. It turns out that Will survived that night in episode 3 because he didn't really see Pennywise. He saw the nurse dressed up as Pennywise. Even that crappy clown picture they took was her as well. And she did it because she wanted to see Pennywise again. So that was cool and made sense. but there were a couple times where it didn't make sense, such as when Pennywise was outside of Will's house. I mean, not only did that look 100% like Bill Skarsgård's figure, but we also had the balloon floating around, which has always been Pennywise's trademark. The same with the last time it showed up and made a grab for Will, so I don't know why they tried to imply that this was her too. The fact they included this bit of footage into the flashback seems like an editing mistake to me. And I like how Pennywise is bothered by the fact that little Mabel brought an adult with her, and I really like how when she says, he is confused for a second, but then suddenly realizes who she is, and he becomes so happy. Like, this revelation just brought him so much joy. And then he drops the facade completely and comes after them. And the whole Pennywise segment this episode was shot in black and white, but ingeniously, the only color that makes its way through is his orange eyes, the red balloon, and the red blood. Aesthetically, that made this scene with Pennywise different, and I really enjoyed it. In fact, I wouldn't mind if they gave us more scenes with this aesthetic. It works very well, and this entire scene was really good. As per usual, you can see how starved Pennywise is with all that drool. He's still hilariously bad at hiding how eager he is to eat these kids. The only nitpick I have is that it had a typical horror trip up right here, but it was still a great scene. So I assume he uses the nurse as his proxy, because like I said, she thinks that if he kills more and more kids that her father will come back to her. I don't know if he told her that or if that was her own delusion, but for whatever reason, he keeps her alive. So yeah, it turns out my initial suspicions about her were right. She just wasn't Pennywise, but she was kind of his servant. Overall, this was a good episode. You can feel that the tensions are starting to rise with most of the characters, and you can just sense that we are coming to a true conclusion here. The episode had some problems. The drama between Lily and her friends didn't feel like it was written the best and felt forced, and as good as this episode was, I still felt like I wanted more for my week's worth of patience. So this episode gets a high 7 out of 10. And I want to know, who gave the cops a tip about Ronnie's father's whereabouts? Because that sounded way too convenient. Also, I think that Rich is going to die. A lot of these kids could end up dying by the end, but the way they show Marge really fall for him, it gave me the impression that they are setting these two up for heartbreak. But only time will tell if I'm right. We have 2 episodes left, and at this point, anything can happen. Yes, we finally get to see the origin of Pennywise the Clown. I've wanted to see this ever since we saw the trailers for It Chapter 2. They made it look like we were gonna see the origin, and we sadly didn't. I used to wonder what he was really like. Was he good? Was he bad? It turns out, he is really nice. He just can't pose for a photo to save his life. And he has a really beautiful scene with his daughter. Also, I didn't expect his voice to actually sound like this.
I miss the big crowds. Sure.
I thought that was just Pennywise putting that voice on, but no, that's his voice. And to me, this entire sequence just further illustrated how great of an actor Bill Skarsgård is. The way he delivers this silent performance, then this very vulnerable human performance, it was great to see. He's also very proud of his daughter who wants to follow in his footsteps. The mother in the family is dead, and you can see the sadness weighing on both of them. What he says about his parents being dead was especially tragic. It really showed another side to Bill Skarsgård's performance in this franchise, a much more tragic side, as this character has had it very hard, but he's not a stereotypical Stephen King madman or anything. Despite going through a very hard life, he's incredibly genuine, and the relationship he has with his daughter is very sweet, to the point that I actually wanted to see even more of his life, regardless of whether Pennywise was in it or not. Speaking of which, that's when It shows up. It impersonates a kid and projects the sound of a mother who's in danger, and we all know what happens next. It's especially sad for the daughter, as she's already sad about the loss of her mother, and now she's lost her father. And it gives you a much better understanding of why Ingrid went nuts, and shows that her insanity came from tragedy. I will say though, the scene with the original Pennywise, I thought it was a bit simplistic. I actually wouldn't have minded if they padded it out a little and gave us a good memorable horror scene out of it. I always imagined that Pennywise would haunt him or something before he kills him, but sadly no, it's all done off screen. It's still a great flashback, I just wanted a bit more out of it. And Andy Muschietti cameos again. So we cut back to the present tense with the white mob coming for Hank, and Dick actually covers for him saying he's not here, which is surprising given how much he really didn't want him there in the first place. But he stepped up in this episode in many ways, and that restored some goodwill back into him and made him an even more likable character. The The white mob then set the whole place on fire, and this was one hell of a great sequence. A large portion of this scene is made to look like one shot, and this is one of those examples of how streaming is putting theaters out of business. This is the kind of scene that we would usually see in theaters, but we are watching it in our homes on TV. Except, I watched it on my 4K projector, which made it like a theater, and it was awesome. Things only get worse when Pennywise shows up after sensing all these people's fear, and he offers a helping hand to this woman, and then eats her. He always does that. He did that at the beginning of It Chapter 2 as well. And it turns out that Ingrid was the one who tipped the cops off about where Hank was because she wanted to draw Pennywise out. Damn, that's evil. It's a sad story what happened to her, but at the same time, all the death and suffering she has caused makes it hard to feel sorry for her. Pretty much everyone died here because of her, including Rich. And yes, this scene, it was so sad. It was beautifully done, and the greatest thing about it is that Pennywise didn't come in and kill Rich. It was a sacrifice, but a slow and emotional one rather than an intense one. They could have thought, well, if he's gonna die, then we might as well have Pennywise kill him, but I'm so glad they didn't do that. They showed restraint. And this is not even the saddest part. The tears start to come in with the aftermath of Rich's death. Marge sees his dead body, and the look on her face, as well as the look on the rest of the characters' faces, was so heartbreaking. All the actors here really did a fantastic job and delivered a really sad scene. And the emotions don't end here. I love how, throughout the episode, the characters are still mourning over Rich's death. And it's still sad. It doesn't feel like it's milking the death scene, it feels genuine, as opposed to some bullshit like Scream 5 where Dewey dies and then they're over it in the very next scene. This franchise, however, which introduced a brand new character, gave him a far better and emotional send-off than a character that's been in a franchise for nearly 30 years. Yeah, now give these same directors The Mummy, where they will most likely kill Jonathan off in an equally pathetic way. So I gotta give a huge amount of praise to the show for pulling this off. It killed off his character phenomenally well. And then we get Ingrid's husband, who gets killed by Pennywise in a very slasher way, which was kinda strange for Pennywise. This is more of a Jason kill, but not really Pennywise the clown. And this is the guy who was staring at Will's mum like there was something wrong with her for trying to put a stop to those bullies. Plus, he's one of the members of the white mob, so I was so happy to see him die. Here's hoping the rest of them get it too. And Pennywise actually humors Ingrid, presumably because he wants to keep using her. And when he's about to leave, she finally figures out that he is not her father, and then he uses his deadlights and makes her float. We'll see exactly what he did to her in the next episode. So the military find one of the pillars, and as expected, it's the army. We all knew this would happen.
Change of plan. Pillar's going back to base for further testing.
Wait, the plan has always been to move inward.
The military go against their original plans and want to test and see if they can use Pennywise as a weapon, but not on Russia, but on the whole world. The general says that civil rights is going to start another civil war, so he wants to release Pennywise and get everyone worrying about the same thing. Yeah, that is a crazy plan, and the general should be shot, or in my opinion, fed to Pennywise. But we all know that Pennywise stays in Derry and doesn't escape, so I'm guessing that it's not going to pad out the way the general wants it to. And hopefully, he and every other a-hole gets brutally eaten by Pennywise, and I hope they make it very violent too. Leroy is understandably pissed and makes an enemy out of the general, and the army actually wake Pennywise up from his 27-year sleep. Who would have saw that coming? Not me, Double D! Also, we actually get to see where he sleeps, and I didn't realize it was surrounded by this. Gross. But it's cool that we finally get to see his resting place, and not just the dark pit that he falls into. And this scene was so cool. I saw it coming, because we didn't see footage of Ronnie picking up the phone on the other end, but it was so cool that I actually rewatched it several times. It also reminds me of that YouTube clip of this kid that has been going around.
Are you okay, little boy?
Are you okay, little fucking dirty ass Pennywise? I can fuck you up. Yell out.
You'll see how tough you are when I get to Florida. See you soon.
I'm not in Florida. You're not gonna scare me.
Speak up, Willie boy.
You hear that?
I can't hear you.
I'm done being scared.
I can't hear you. What?
All jokes and cool scenes aside, I wonder why Pennywise came to Will when the whole reason he woke up was to go after the military. Maybe he needs him as his proxy to go to the base where Leroy is, but if he wanted to do that, then he could have done that to anyone else, so we'll see. Oh, and Hank is now declared dead, so good for him. And Lily looks like she is slowly going insane herself. But yeah, this was a great episode, easily the best of the season. They honestly could have ended the episode with Richard's death, and I would have been satisfied, because the rest of the episode was good, but it didn't compete with this whole section. Because of that, I want to give this episode an 8, but you know what? They did the Rich stuff so unbelievably well that I think it deserves a higher score. So Welcome to Derry episode 7 gets a series first 9 out of 10. I hope Pennywise kills all of those adults next episode. I'd be very disappointed if he doesn't.